If you're a business owner feeling stuck, overwhelmed, and ready to grow, you're in the right place. Welcome to Small Business Pivots, where founders share insights, stories, and pivots that lead to sustainable growth. I'm your host, Michael D. Morrison, a business coach helping business owners get unstuck and grow. All right, welcome to another Small Business Pivots. Today we have one of my favorite guests. He's been on here before. In fact, I encourage you to go listen to the last two episodes he was on. The first one, he was my first guest ever 3+ years ago on March 16th of 23. We met up again in November of 23. I encourage you to go listen or watch those episodes because that will give you the pre-guest where his business was at that time. But I'm going to let our guest introduce himself first. He's been a client, he's been a friend, he's been a mentor, and everything else to me and many others in our community. But only the business owner can introduce themselves and their business the way they want to introduce themselves. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Jeff.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Well, Michael, it's great being back on here, man. We always have a blast jumping on these things and catching up. So I really appreciate you inviting me back on. Jeff Gabelsberg. I am the founder of Jolly Goat Garage Doors based out of Oklahoma City. It didn't start out that way, but if you listen to some of the other episodes, you'll kind of get caught up a little bit about how we got where we are. And I believe the last time we started talking, it was, like you said, it was around the rebrand process, right after that we did our rebrand, which was a pretty big deal at the time. It was one of those things that, we kind of dove right into it and just hoping it was going to work with our fingers crossed. And it did, it worked. And so we've been on a pretty nice growth spurt since then.
Absolutely. So Reader's Digest version for the younger crowd, they probably don't know what that is. That means just the condensed version. You have a pretty cool story of where you came from. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs feel imposter syndrome. They feel like I'm not good enough. Am I worthy? You've got a story to prove otherwise of what you can be if you work at it. So if you could share just a little bit of that for those that don't listen to the previous episodes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm no different than any other blue collar home service guy that just started working on a product and got into a trade. It was one of those things, I got into it and back in my delinquent, teenage days, fell into it. And so it was something that I liked doing. I was actually kind of good at it, and it got me off the streets and got me away from some of the crime stuff that I was involved in as a young man. And so I really kind of fell in love with just working on garage doors. And at the time, I didn't realize that I was learning a trade, but I was. And I've just grown with it. It's taken me all around, really all around the world. I've had some pretty amazing experiences along the way. I've met some really, really amazing people that have helped uplift me. Found some mentors myself and worked on that growth process. All of that's only happened in the past very short handful of years, though. It was a struggle for a really, really long time. I originally started my business, Garage Door Solutions, back in 2013. And it wasn't until we did the rebrand in 23. And here we are currently in the middle of 26. And so most of our growth has really come in the past 3 to 4 years. Prior to that, it was just me in a truck, doing what we know to do best. We answer the call. We do our best to book it, and we go out and do the estimates. We go out and do the service. We go out and do the work. We do the installs. We do the warranties. We're doing it all, right? And so that was me up until just a few short years ago.
Yeah, that's incredible story. And so your first action item was figuring this out because somebody else had as well. And so Go ahead and share that story, and then kind of the goals that you put out there, and then what it took to do that. Because you were kind of like that chucking a truck, right? Just in survival mode. And then here 10 years later, you're like exploding at the seams. So that transition, that pivot, that's the pivot I think most contractors, service-based businesses, I think that's what they're looking for, and they're wanting so bad. It's just not happening. So kind of take us back to that moment and how it worked out for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's difficult. I was at the point of giving up, and I was in debt. I was struggling. It was just, life wasn't great. And, I had a friend who worked at one of the big box stores, and he was one of my neighbors, and we had been talking, and he's like, "Oh man, I'll talk to my boss." And, he said, we can get you on over there. Cause I had been talking to him and kind of, crying on his shoulder about all my struggles and things like that. And I thought, well, here's an opportunity to go work for a big box store and have a steady paycheck. Right. I can probably start paying the bills on time, not to come home and the lights are turned off, electricity's out, water's off, that kind of stuff, as I dealt with that often. Because in the home service space and you're out there on your own, you might crush it one week. You might even have 2 really good weeks. Then you got a week or two of nothing. And that's what really, that's the big struggle for me. And so I took my buddy up on the offer, and I talked to his manager buddy on the phone, and he's like, "Yeah, just come on up." And he's like, you got the job, just come on up here. We got to do some paperwork and stuff like that. So I drove up there, sat in the parking lot for a few minutes, and there was something that just grabbed me and told me, "Man, don't do this. Like, there's success to be made. You can make this successful." And I just sat there and I thought, I knew that there was other people out there. And I've said this to you before, Michael. It's like, I knew there was other people out there that were successful in the home service space, whether it was garage doors, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, roofing, whatever it was. And if they could do it, so could I. And I kind of had an aha moment of like, what, I just don't know how to do it. And I kind of checked myself and held myself accountable real quick. Why don't I know how to do it? Well, it's because I haven't asked anybody. I haven't reached out. I didn't do any of that. I was just expecting all this stuff to fall in my lap as I started this business and started to grow, and all these things would just automatically happen. And they weren't happening. So that was a struggle in life. So I decided not to get out of that truck and go inside, sign on the dotted line, and accept a job. I decided to go home, put my big boy pants on, and try to figure shit out. And that's just what I did. It was still a struggle for a while, but put myself in front of intentionally several people that were business owners in my own community and outside of my community. They're in my industry, and not all of them, but a couple of them are like, "Oh yeah, man, come on, let me show you, how I did it. Let me show you this. Let me show you that. This is what I suggest." And they're talking about reading these books and podcasts and all these things, and that was a big help. But listening to a podcast and listening to a book is one thing, but actually taking one of the action items that you learn and implementing it was completely different. So once I started learning all this information, I thought, okay, I got all this great stuff in my head. Now I can start to move forward and grow. But the one part was I didn't know how to implement anything. I couldn't integrate any of these things. At the time, one of my struggles was just having some kind of system for anything. I mean, anything at all. And so I thought, okay, I just got to put a system in place. And the word systems and processes kind of hover around the home service space, right, all the time. And those were words that just scared the hell out of me. I was like, I don't know what that means. I'm not even sure how to do that. I absolutely was not good at school at all. Never even got past the 7th grade. It was just like there was nothing all those systems and processes, all that sounds like that's education to me, right? I was just thinking, okay, smart people know this stuff. I'm not a smart person, so I can't know this stuff. And then I started trying to figure out one little thing here and there, and started to put some stuff together. And one of the very first things I did was I just put together a manual. I wrote it down on legal paper with a pen throughout the day on the process on how to install or do a spring replacement, which is pretty common in our industry. I did the spring replacement. I wrote down every step, and then boom, all of a sudden I had a process in place. And so I started doing that with all of the stuff that I did. I had onboarded my brother Alan had come on board with me, and so I finally had my first employee. And he was very, very low paid employee for the work he was doing at the time. But he would literally ride with me in the passenger seat and with his laptop open, and we would just sit there and just write processes all day until we got pretty good at it. And finally, he'd sit in the garage also. I'd be in the garage working, and I would be saying out loud what I'm doing, and he's typing it out. This is before we had AI that we could just put a camera out there and figure stuff out for us, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't that long ago. So we started putting all those things in place. And then before we knew it, we actually had a process in place for when we hire somebody to train them now. So those first early manuals or processes became our training program for whenever I started, got a little bit later on and a little bit more growth and started hiring people. And so, that's just one of the little things that was a big deal for me that really was holding me back. I mean, it was a struggle just, putting one little thing in place. And so, because there's so much information out there. And I think, all of us young entrepreneurs really we really hit a wall when it comes to all this information and like, I need to do all this. And yes, we need to do all of it, but you don't have to do all of it at once. That was where I kept failing. And I was trying to implement everything and everything was failing. But you just take one thing at a time, implement it, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, modify it a little bit. It doesn't have to, it's not going to work every time, and that's okay. But just getting something in place, whether it's a system, whether it's, what it could be putting yourself on payroll. It could be, a number of different things, right? It's just getting one thing started, and you'll start to find that once you get one or two rolling, all of a sudden you go, oh, that was actually easier than I thought it was going to be. I stressed about that for years. Now I just got that done in like 2 days. I'm going to do something else, and you just keep growing it from there. And our company now is completely based on, we have a system for everything. Everything. We have a system for literally everything. I'm not kidding you, in place, but it makes everything roll pretty smooth. So
those early days, and then we'll move in closer to today's times. Those early days, one of the struggles I hear a lot of contractors and new entrepreneurs is, you were talking about, you had jobs, you were out there working, but you also need more sales to hire an employee. And so you got this juggling act, and I need to make systems, and I need to do this, this, and this. How did you break that down in your head so you actually took action? Because one thing I heard you say was, yeah, there's a lot of things we need to do, but just do one of them. You can't do them all at one time. So how did you break it down to, I need to start here because I can't have an employee without more sales, but I can't be out selling if I don't fulfill the orders that I've already got. You see what I'm saying? Just that juggling
absolutely.
act of how did you manage that?
One of the best things I ever did for myself, and we still do it here today, just on a different level, but one of the best things I ever did was I sat down and put together a roadmap. That roadmap was basically a growth chart that I put up on the wall. And I put together this chart that had, it started at the top. I called myself the visionary at the time. So I started with the visionary, worked all the way down, management team, ops team. We got somebody, office team, CSRs, dispatch people, service manager, warehouse manager, all the way down to the field techs, to the helpers and trainees and all stuff. And I put all these positions on this whiteboard. It was a really big 5x7 whiteboard, and I had all these boxes. And this chart represented where I wanted to be in 3 years. It wasn't where I was at that day, just where I wanted to be in 3 years. And so I labeled each one, and I said, okay, here's what I need to do. I'm going to put my name in each box right now because I am every single one of these positions. And that was an eye-opener for me. And I sat there and looked at it every single day. It was up on my wall in my living room in my little 320 square foot apartment. And it was something I watched and looked at every day. And now my goal every day was to get better and grow so that I could start replacing my name with other people's names and start to grow a team and grow a family and actually grow a business. So implementing that and just putting that right in front of my face as a reminder that you're not going to grow unless you see where you're growing was a big thing. And putting that in place was probably one of the biggest. And then that also helped me with all the systems and processes. I thought, okay, if I'm going to hire a technician out in the field, at that point we had kind of what we called a manual for training, but we didn't have a manual for somebody that we hired. And at the time I would just, like most, I would just put somebody in my passenger seat and they'd ride with me, and that's how I would train them. But they didn't have a job description. They didn't have anything. So we started building a job description and an outline of each one of those positions so that when we did come to hire somebody, this is what they were going to be doing. And they had an understanding of exactly what their roles and responsibilities were for that position. They also knew where their name was on that chart, because when I started hiring people, I had them erase my name and they wrote their name in there. Mm-hmm. And they also knew where they started and where they wanted to go and where they wanted to grow in the business. And so that was early on. That was probably one of the biggest things that was an eye opener for me, to be able to just put that one thing in place and look at it every single day. And it was like a slap in the face when I woke up every day. It was right there. And I knew that was my goal. That was what I was responsible for, was replacing those names on that board.
Well, our goal of the podcast and the podcast that you've been on and you have, and that is to impact people, right? And so far, we've talked about simple things of asking for help, right? Taking action, right? So we're talking simplistic things, and these things can happen to anybody, right? If they do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And they are simple things, but for a guy like me, just being this, garage door guy out in the field all those years, it was very, very difficult. And I'm thinking, okay, what is it going to take for me to get to the next level? And yes, it's implementing these things, but I was so scared. I was holding myself back because I was scared of what was going to happen next. I didn't know if I went to hire somebody and I started paying them, what if I didn't have enough money to pay them, right? That was a big scare for me. And then finally, one of my mentors, it was the whole, if you build it, they will come kind of situation, right? Field of dreams. He was like, look, you're never going to grow if you don't hire somebody, right? And so at the first time I hired somebody that could go out and do some of the work that I was doing, it freed me up to do other stuff like help grow the business. I was like, oh man, that's what everybody's been talking about. Brought somebody on, put them in place, and they started doing half of the work out in the field that I was doing. I was still out in the field, of course, but they started taking care of the stuff that I didn't like to do and I didn't want to do, or maybe I wasn't good at. And that freed me up to focus on something else and grow the business. And of course, we do everything around here as performance-based pay. So as long as they were working, then we had money to pay them. So, if they took a day off, it's not like we weren't, they're performance based. So we didn't pay them hourly. We didn't give them a salary or anything like that. So, and we still operate that way today very successfully. But, once I started hiring people and one at a time kind of thing and just growing it, I saw some pretty magnificent results from that. But that was scary, not being able to make somebody's payroll, now, and all of us entrepreneurs that have started a payroll and have some people out there have been in that boat before where we didn't pay ourselves maybe for a month or two or 6 or whatever, just because we knew, paying our people came first. So,
well, let's skip a little forward to the rebrand, because I know the last show that was brand new and you were excited about it. You were scared again as well, as a next step, and it was a huge investment. Let's talk about the difference between investing in a company that does a true rebrand versus getting your logo recreated, because you went through a season where you went from the garage door to 405 and kind of explored in different areas. But what did that do for you to hire a professional instead of trying to figure it out yourself?
Well, yeah. Well, it was something that I knew I couldn't do on my own because I was going to need somebody to help me with that. So when we started interviewing companies that did rebrands, we were asking it was just me at the time that was looking at this. I said, what does it look like? How much is it going to cost? That was my biggest thing. How much is this going to cost me? Right. This is just I know I'm going to have to come out of pocket here. So I dreaded it. And I talked to some local companies. I talked to some companies out of state and kind of settled on these 3. And they were, one of them, they said, look here, I want to say they were going to be about $5,000 or $7,000, something like that, which was a lot of money at the time. But I was like, what does it look like? And so they would tell me, well, you give us all this information, you fill out this form and tell us kind of what you want, and we'll create you this amazing, beautiful image for your company, and it'll be your brand, and you can do whatever you want to with it. I'm like, okay, that sounds about right, whatever. And then there was a company called Kick Charge Creative out of New Jersey, and I met this guy that owned the company, Dan Antonelli, out at one of the conferences that I was at. And he started kind of talking to me about this, and I was like, this is probably going to be expensive. I knew somebody else in my industry that had gone through a rebrand with Dan and his team, so I interviewed with them, and honestly, they were interviewing me. I got on a Zoom with them, thinking I'm going to ask all the questions, and they started interviewing me. By the time we got to our second interview process, our second Zoom, they asked me straight up, what is the next. What does this look like to you? Where do you want it to go? And then they laid it out for me, and they told me this is what the next year to 2 years of your life looks like once you sign with us. This is what we're going to do. And they had a system in place. They had everything laid out, week to week, month to month, deadlines, everything that was going to get done, everything that was going to happen, and basically a finish line. And I thought, okay, this company is legit. This is who I need to go with. And then I saw the price tag. Ooh, it was a lot. It was money I did not have at the time. So I went and got a line of credit, to try to, I was going to use. Turns out we started kind of growing a little bit. So as we went ahead and went with Kick Charge Creative, and as we started the process, it took us about 18 months. It was a long process. Some of them don't take near that long. Some of them do. It's just one of those things. We really dove into ours. Like, there's a lot of psychology. There's just a whole lot of stuff that goes into that you can hear on the other podcasts about the actual rebrand piece of it. But that was, it was a scary moment. We were able, luckily enough, we were able to kind of self-fund that process of the rebrand. You had to pay for it in kind of increments before you get to the finish line. And we were able to do that without having to take the line of credit or utilize it anyway. And so that was a scary time as well. That was another one of those times where I wasn't paying myself anything, just to make it happen. But it was an amazing experience overall. And yes, doing the rebrand was probably the best thing that I ever did for the company. And now it's something, Jolly Goat Garage Doors we're growing like crazy. People see it all the time. We do home shows. We do a lot of branding awareness. TV, radio, stuff like that, billboards, the whole thing. And people see us everywhere, and they're always talking about it. Every time I go somewhere, oh, you're the Jolly Goat guy. Oh yeah, I've seen your billboard, I heard your commercials, whatever. And, that to me is something that is very valuable for our growth. And then, the name itself, Jolly Goat, and the brand, I didn't know if that was going to stick or not. It was silly. It was out there. We didn't know what was going to happen, but I thought, man, if the community and the state doesn't accept this, then I'm going to have to go back to the old one. I'll waste all this money. But everybody has really, really adapted to it, and we kind of, we've been making a name for ourselves really all over the world with this brand, and we're having a lot of fun with it. A lot of fun.
It's a true brand. You've got goats and everything.
We do, yeah. We got pet goats, and they're amazing. They travel with us almost everywhere we go, so we love it.
You're listening to Small Business Pivots with Michael D. Morrison. If you're ready to get your business unstuck and grow, let's chat. Schedule your free session at michaeldmorrison.com. Now back to the show. Well, that was the last time that we've been updated, right? Mm-hmm. After the rebrand. And I'm sure the revenue's grown. You've done all kinds of things, so I don't want to put words in your mouth because I don't have all the details, even though we see each other from time to time, right? But we just don't talk business every time. So catch our listeners up. You have a solid company. You're making some revenue consistently. You've got a nice brand. Now what's happened?
Yeah, so a lot has happened. And we've got a lot coming up in the future too, which is really exciting as well. But so we've grown. Jolly Goat now has grown to 6 locations across the state of Oklahoma. We've got, I don't know exactly where our team count is up to right now, but I think it's in the 20-ish, low 20s range total. We've got a new commercial division that we didn't have before. We've just got all kinds of really amazing stuff going on with our team itself. Culture, which we will talk about in another podcast sometime, but we built an amazing culture here that, sometimes puts tears in my eyes, just watching the team and what they're doing together with each other's families, even outside of business. And so that part's been amazing as well. But a little over a year ago, we decided to, as we started growing, Jolly Goat started kind of getting a name out there. And so we started getting hit up by private equity companies left and right. And I was not even close to being ready to onboard with private equity or do anything like that. And there was a lot of people in our space, in the garage door space, that were doing it at the time. Multiples were going for stupid, high teen multiples in some cases. And so it was a very short period of time when that was happening. And I kept saying, no. It's, they were, I would entertain the conversations because one of my mentors said, you know what, you need to learn about this as much as you can because eventually something like this is probably going to, come your way that's going to work. So I would have conversations with them and what does it look like once, if I were to onboard with you? And so they said, well, we're going to come in, we're going to help you do this. We're going to influx this amount of cash into the business. We're going to grow it, marketing, give you all the money you need to do that. We'll bring in some management team for you, blah, blah. I mean, it was all kinds of stuff. It was all about them and what they wanted to do. And so obviously all of those things were a no to me. And then I had a friend in the industry. We were at an industry event out of town, and he sat me down. He's like, man, we had set up a meeting while I was there in town, and we sat down, and he said, man, I really want you to think about this deal. Let me tell you what's going on. This is a new thing. And there's a company out there that was established shortly before this conversation that I had with him called Guild Garage Group. And they weren't private equity. They were a strategic partner. And so he was telling me all these things before, he really knew a whole lot about what my vision was or anything like that for the future. And as I'm listening to him, I'm like, man, does this guy know what's going on in my head or what? Because everything he's talking about with Guild Garage Group and what they're going to do and what their plan is was completely aligned with my growth plan. And so I entertained the conversations and met with some folks over the next few weeks and few months. And it was a very, very long process, but we ended up partnering with Guild Garage Group a little over a year ago, which was amazing. Everything's just been fantastic. They've got all the resources that you need that a company needs for growth. I mean, just amazing. Then they took over like all the stuff that I don't like to do, like all the numbers and all the accounting and all that stuff is now off of my plate. Paying all the bills and getting all that stuff done now is somebody else's job, which I absolutely love. But strategic partnership and growth and with an exit plan of, what that looks like. And so we actually ended up onboarding with Guild Garage Group actually has over about 25, 26 brands nationwide, and each brand is a platform for their region or their area. So Jolly Goat Garage Doors is a platform company for the state of Oklahoma, a little bit of North Texas, and Arkansas. So those are the areas that we will probably most likely expand into, and potentially some other ones as well in the future. But we've got all the ability we need to grow. We've got an amazing team when it comes to marketing to help make marketing decisions so that we can keep everything in budget and keep it online and still keep the leads flowing. That's one of the areas that all entrepreneurs, all business owners have struggle. It's we don't have enough people to fulfill the leads, or we've got or just the opposite. And now we've got both. We know how to hire people, recruit and hire people very easily, very well now, and train them and get them in a truck really fast. When I say really fast, it's still a couple months.
Yeah.
But some companies do it in like 2 weeks, which is ridiculous.
Right.
But we have that in place now. We've got the recruiting team. We've got marketing team. We've got obviously an HR team now. We've got, you name it. And then we've got, this growth team that all we do is just sit around. We just talk about how we're going to grow each other's businesses and help each other out. And the collaboration with all of the other partners that I have now has just been amazing. You talk about having, trying to find a mentor to learn about your, how to grow your business. But all these guys, we've all been through it, and we've all kind of been through it together. Some of them been in business a lot longer than me, some of them shorter than me, but we're just learning from each other on how to grow and continue to grow that business.
That's coming from a delinquent, as you said, to a chuck in a truck, to a successful businessman that still has a horizon out there, still got room for growth, is an amazing story. And goes to show that anyone can do it, right?
Yeah.
And it's really, like you said, it's scary, but if you don't do anything, nothing's going to change. And I have a comment that I always say all the time: until I change, nothing around me changes. I mean, I say that all the time with our entrepreneurs. And so I want everybody to go listen to those stories, follow your brand, but I want to talk about pay performance, right? Something very specific that is tangible. People can go this week and start researching it, because that is probably the number one problem with most contractors is their staff or lack of, and how to pay them, how to get the most productivity out of them. So can you kind of explain what that is? Because I bet a lot of our listeners don't know that. And I know a friend of ours has some software and everything. There's a lot of components to this. So go ahead and share that if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, performance-based pay is crucial for any home service business to be successful in a growth mode. There's a lot of companies out there that have been around for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 plus years that still pay hourly and do things, and that's okay. And some people say, oh, well, they're a huge company. If you got 30 years to grow, you're going to be a good sized business. But your growth is probably going to be somewhere around 5 to 6% per year. You may have some years a little bit better, some years a little bit lower. What I'm talking about is a growth mode of 50, 100% year after year after year, and continued massive growth. You can only do that using performance-based pay. And then when you recruit people and find people, the ones that are excited about performance-based pay are the ones you need to hold on to if they're a good fit for your culture and your team. There's guys that we get people coming in here all the time trying to work here, and a lot of them are coming from other places, other industries, whatever, and they might get paid by the hour, or they might have a salary or whatever, and they're worried about how paying their bills. But we've got a roadmap for each technician as well, and we show them, okay, whenever you do work, you get paid. This is how much you get paid. And it's based off of how much work you do in a day or whatever the case is. And this is how it works. And we have a very specific 7-step sales process that we use and we stick to. It's basically part of our core as a whole, as Jolly Goat. And we show them this is exactly how you do it. And trust me, you'll make money. And we put goals together for them so they know exactly how much money they want to make every day. We put an end goal. Let's say they want to make X amount of dollars in a rolling 12-month period. And we say, okay, let's break it down per quarter, per month, per week, per day. This is what you need to be doing in order to make that much money. And we hold them accountable for it every single day. We look at the numbers every morning and see how it works. But basically and performance-based pay is something that can be very scary if you're trying to switch to it. If you have a team currently, because most of them aren't going to get it, they're not going to want to do it, but you'll probably have one or two of them that's like, yeah, you know what, I'm interested in that, because all it is an opportunity for them to make more money, a lot more money. And at the end of the day, your revenue is going to go through the ceiling. That's just how the process works. You have to have a sales process in place. You can't just willy-nilly say, hey guys, I'll pay you a percentage off of what you do and just let them go out there and do stuff. Whether you like the people or not, it's not going to be ethical. It's not going to be the way to go. You've got to have a system in place. You got to have a price book, a pricing structure set in place that doesn't change, doesn't go up. You can give discounts, of course, but it doesn't go up at all. So to make sure that everything aligns with you and what your customers want to do, as far as the customers that you best serve anyway. And you got to have all that in place. But basically, they get paid per dollar that they generate out in the field. And so our sales people are also our technicians that are out in the field doing like residential repair, for example. They're on 3 different tiers. So we've got like a junior tech, a tech, and a senior tech, and it's a different percentage for each one of those. And it's not based on time. It's based off of how long where their KPIs are. We base them off of different key performance indicators of where they stand as far as what percentage they're at. We could have somebody that's been here for 3 years, but all of a sudden their KPIs are tracking a downward motion where they're going to bump down a tier until we get their KPIs aligned where they're back where they need to be. Then we can bump them back up. And so they're always incentivized to do the absolute best job for the company, which is the best result for the client at the end of the day. And so it's a very easy system once it's in place. It's easy to understand. That's where a lot of companies make it super complicated. And it's like, you get a piece of this, and if you sell this or do that, it's a little add-on, and that's not simple. Ours is very simple. There's 3 tiers, and that's it, and that's where everybody sits. When it comes to our installers, it's the same way. We have 2 tiers for them, but it's also based off performance, right? So, and we base it off of what they call sold by hours because of the software we use, which is Service Titan. All of it's set up inside Service Titan that way. And so, if they go out and do a 2-car garage, we know that on average it's going to take X amount of time, and they get paid off of that X amount of time. If they go and do a door that's a bigger door, we will base that off of like X and a half time, so they get paid off of that, based off of that one. But the more doors they do in a week and install in a week, the more money they're going to make. So it works out pretty good. And in order to do that, you really need to do it and do it safely. You really need to have W-2 employees. This does not work great on a 1099 contractor situation at all. You have to be able to control it. You have to be able to, have to trust the people and the system that you've put in place in order to make it work. But once it's in place and it works, it can be very successful, especially if you've got multiple people on your team. You'll see this like fun little competition camaraderie going on between them, and everybody having a good time and talking about, they're doing this and they're doing that and all the exciting stuff that they've got going on in their worlds and their lives because they're on performance-based pay.
Yeah, it's the only way to go, really. Mm-hmm. And I know that business owners are probably thinking, wow, that sounds overwhelming. That sounds like a lot of work. And look at the reward at the end, right? Mm-hmm. If you want something different, you got to do something different. This is one of those moments I say, go slow to go fast. Mm-hmm. Pause, research this, look at it so that you can be profitable, because most of the contractors are not profitable, right? They've got too much inventory. They don't even know where inventory is, half of it's sitting in a yard or a warehouse somewhere unaccounted for. But one of the things, and we'll probably wrap up here, and that is, you mentioned the training. So something you said, most people do it in 2 weeks, and you take the time, and your facility is incredible. The setup, how you have it set up. Share what you want. You don't have to share all your trade secrets, but share what you want as far as how you have found. Because when you first started training people, it was kind of hey, quickly, I need you out in the field, follow these systems. And now you've got a robust training system. And every time someone's come to my house or someone I know, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. And absolutely. So that's due to your training.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things, when we onboard somebody, our recruiting process to find the right people is pretty specific in what we do, and we find the right people. We look for people outside of our industry, and they could be doing anything. It could be a painter. Just you name it, and they don't have to be in the trades. They could just be doing anything. They're just not happy where they're at. They don't have room to grow. Those are the kind of people we're looking for, that want to grow and want to do something better with their lives and for their families. And so that makes a great candidate for a Jolly Goat team member. So when we onboard them, we want to make sure, and we promise them, we make promises, and we say, listen, we're going to give you all the tools to succeed. And all the tools is a very broad term at Jolly Goat. We're talking about the training. We're talking about, of course, vehicles, the physical tools. Continued education is huge. So we do continued education every single week here at Jolly Goat Garage Doors, and continued training. So probably the biggest piece to that is the training facility that we actually built in-house. To my knowledge, we're still the only company in the state of Oklahoma that actually has a physical training facility set up the way that we do. So we can literally bring somebody in here that doesn't know anything about garage doors and have them in a truck in a couple of months and out there making money. We can recreate anything at all inside our training center. We got multiple doors in there, multiple garage door openers, all kinds of different systems. So everything from installs to what we call a door off track or a hung door, spring job, spring replacements, motor installs, service repairs, whatever. We can do everything right here in-house without having to put somebody in a truck and just go train them on whatever job comes up next. Because inevitably you can put somebody in a truck and ride in the passenger seat and train them for a year. They're still not going to see everything out there because there's some things that just don't happen every day. We recreate everything that happens every day and everything that happens once a year so that they have the proper education and know-how once they get out there in the field. And it never fails. We get all excited about getting somebody out there, and sure enough, like the first week they're in the field, they're going to come across something that they didn't get trained on or whatever. So that's where the training facility comes into place. And jumping back to the processes, we have a process for every single one of those. I'm talking about like turning the wrenches, turning the springs, what tool to use here, how to step up and down your ladder. Everything, you name it, is written down, and we've got most of it. Actually, it's all on video now, so they can watch a video and then they can do the hands-on piece of it. And we still put them in a truck once a day with one of our top guys. At the end of the week on Fridays, they always do a ride along, but Monday through Thursday during their training period, that's where they're at. And for training, we do have what's called training pay, which is just it's a set pay. We don't pay that obviously on performance because they're not generating any dollars yet. But man, they are itching to get out there and get in those trucks and those vans and get out there and start making some money for sure.
I love it. Well, I know there's people that want to learn more. So how do you like to be contacted or followed?
Yeah.
Or do you put stuff out there?
Yeah, easiest thing for me is Facebook. I'm old school. I'm a 50-year-old guy, so I'm still using Facebook. I know it's not super popular with a lot of people anymore, but that's the easiest way to find me. And just hit me up there. And there are no trade secrets with Jolly Goat Garage Doors. So if you want to know anything, let us know. We love to open up our shop doors. We invite people. We actually have somebody coming in tomorrow from out of town, and we have people from out of state come in all the time. Come spend a couple of days with us, hang out with myself, my GM Cody, who's here, and then we always, a lot of times we'll have somebody bring along their top guy on the field and go ride with one of my top guys out in the field for a day. We don't charge anything for that. And like I said, we're an open book. So I encourage anybody that is wanting to get the next level, or maybe you've kind of got to the next level and now you're kind of stale and stuck in one spot and you're wanting to pivot, let me know. We'd be more than happy to bring you guys in and hang out with us for a day or two. See how we run our meetings, see how we do our training, and see how we've got everything in place. And actually, once you see it, it seems a lot easier.
Yes.
Once it's in place, once somebody else has done it. And happy to share, any of that knowledge with anybody. I wouldn't be here if people didn't share with me. So I want to make sure that we're doing our part to give back to all the trade communities out there. So no matter what business you're in, we could be, we've got a guy that does carpet and tile work that came in and met with us a while back. We've got, gutter guys, you name it. But if you're struggling there and it's an area where we can help, we would absolutely love to.
I love it. You're impacting others. So what are some final words of encouragement that you would give to the people that are still in that year 1 to 10 that you were in before you got serious?
Yeah. It was right at 10 years, I believe, before I started kind of turning things around. Or at least, my mind started turning things around. It still took a year or two to kind of start to get things in place and really get things implemented and growing. But it's just take that first step. That's my biggest advice. And I know it sounds really easy, but what I mean by that is just do that one thing. There's a lot of books out there. If you're listening to this podcast, and I know you listen to books and other podcasts as well, just take one nugget out of something, whether it's this podcast, whether it's a book, whatever, and just do it. Just implement that one thing. And, the thing is, it's not always going to work. It's not always going to be great, but just do it. And then once you'll start to, it's a snowball, man. It just starts to get bigger and bigger once you start to, implement things and do things. And like I said, it could be something very tiny, very small in the beginning. Don't overwhelm yourself. That's what I did for the longest time. I kept getting overwhelmed with all these things I needed to do, and all I did was just hold myself back. So if you're a small guy out there like I was, just do one thing. That's it. I mean, one of the things I did when I got my second truck was I put together a system for all the parts on the truck, all the tools, all the parts. This is where it goes. And I bought an identical truck to mine, outfitted it exactly the same way, put the exact same parts in the exact same place and the tools the exact same place. And so I had 2 identical trucks. That we still do today, but something as simple as that. Now we have a process for it, and it's all written down, and we take pictures of where everything goes, and we do inspections on our trucks. And just something as simple as if you got more than one truck, can make your life run so much easier. So it can help big time. So just do that one thing and take that step and do it. Trust me, you will look back and say, man, why did I wait so long to take that step? Why did I wait so long to do it? That's exactly where I was. And I'm glad I took that leap for sure.
Well, I'm glad you did too. And I'm honored to know you, proud of you. I've watched you come a long ways, and I can't wait to see where you land someday. You just keep flying. So
yeah. I mean, Michael, back when we met, I was still just me in a truck. I didn't have anybody with me, just a few short years ago. So it's there, man. And, I want to thank you, even you doing this podcast and helping out all these individuals around the country do their thing and just taking that next leap and pivot, not just in their business, but their lives is huge. And, this is what it takes, just collaboration.
Absolutely. Well, Jeff, I appreciate you. You've been a blessing to many, and I wish you continued success.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you.
You bet. Thanks for listening to Small Business Pivots. If you're ready to get unstuck and grow, schedule your free coaching session at michaeldmorrison.com. On social media, you can find and connect with me using the handle Michael D. Morrison OKC. And if today's episode helped you, subscribe and share it with other business owners. Until next week, keep pivoting.